Guys, welcome back to the channel. Here we are with our recap and our tipping for the AFL 2023. So we'll quickly do a recap of what happened last week and have a look at the results. As usual, please like and subscribe if you like the content. I also do Flash Grows tips as well. So please go over to his channel and like and subscribe on his platform as well. So let's have a look at what happened last week. And we started at GHMBA Stadium, where Geelong had a really gutsy win over Melbourne. Really good game up until three-quarter time, and then the Cats went away with it. It was a bit of a scrubby game. It did rain and it was freezing cold the whole time, but Cats are back, and Melbourne have got some kicking problems. And then we went to the Marvel Stadium, and the Lions easily beat St Kilda in what was a pretty boring game, to be quite honest. Lions actually played quite well at Marvel. I think they've won 7 out of their last 8 there. So Saints aren't travelling so good. Look like they might miss the 8. Then the Swannies at the SCG absolutely piled on some percentage points against the West Coast Eagles, which were pathetic for Sydney, who were, 13th on the ladder. They were 14th at the time to beat West Coast by 171 points, which is the 4th highest of recorded records. Is a really poor effort by West Coast Eagles. Then Fremantle bounced back against Essendon. Another bit of a upset in my eyes, but Fremantle, just look like. How can you pick Fremantle one week to the next? I don't know. Same with Essendon. These teams are so difficult to pick. And the Crows had a really good game against Collingwood. Collingwood did what they usually do and come back and win by 2 points. There was a free kick to Dawson, I think it was. Should have been paid, and Adelaide would have had a kick to win the game. Well, that's the way it goes, but two teams. Adelaide just showed us again that Collingwood are vulnerable. And Adelaide were, they could have really put paid. Actually, Collingwood should have put paid to Adelaide in the first quarter, but they didn't, and Adelaide come back strong. And then the Suns had a really good win against the Hawks. Again, how can you pick the Suns? One week they're cold, next week they're hot, next week they're cold. Hawthorn, 34 points in a game is just not acceptable. So let's have a look at our ladder. So we've still got Collingwood and Port on top on the same points, only percentages that is different. Brisbane in third by 1 game over Melbourne. St Kilda are failing bad. They've got Essendon, Western Bulldogs on the same points now. So they could quite easily slip out if they lose this week. And Adelaide have snuck into the 8. Geelong are pressing, Freo pressing, Richmond are pressing. So there we go. So let's go to... I had a terrible round again. I had 2 out of 6. And I think Flash got 4 out of 6, so he's starting to get a bit of a handy lead on me. I've tipped absolutely terrible during these bye rounds. You can't get any form on any of these teams. So let's go to round 16. And tomorrow night at the Gabba, we've got the Lions up against Richmond. Lions are pretty invincible at the Gabatoir. Richmond are playing well, and they're definitely going to be challenging. And if they're hot, they're hot. So the Lions better beware. But I'm going to pick the Lions by 17 points. So let's go the Lions to beat... Why is that not... Okay, please select the thing. All right. Okay, there we go. So Lions by 17 points to have a tough win over Richmond. Another great game at the SCG. We've got the Swannies coming off that big win against West Coast. But can you read any form into that? I can't. Geelong had a great win against Melbourne in a tough conditions. So I'm going to go Geelong to beat the Swans. Geelong are starting to look good. I think Danger might be back as well. And Geelong have had the wood over the Swans since the grand final. Adelaide, North Melbourne. Well, at Adelaide Oval, you've got to go Adelaide to beat North quite convincingly there. Now, a really good game between Bulldogs and Fremantle. Again, how can you get any form on these two teams? One week they're fine, next week they're terrible, next week they're terrible, next week they're amazing. So, it's at Marvel. Fremantle actually play all right there. Are they gonna bring the Fremantle game? If they bring the Fremantle game, they're probably too good for the Bulldogs. But how can you trust them? I've always said I'd never pick Fremantle again. I'd hate to be one of their supporters, but I'm going to go against myself. I'm going to pick Fremantle to beat Bulldogs. Then we go up to the Gold Coast. So we've got the Suns and Collingwood. Could be an interesting game. The Suns are a bit of a bogey team for Collingwood. They always have close games, but not this week. Collingwood should beat the Suns by 3 or 4 goals. And then we go to the MCG where we've got Port against Essendon. Port are absolutely flying. I think they're going for 13 wins straight. So Port to beat Essendon there quite easily. Another bit of a danger game, warning game here for Carlton. Hawks could strike back, but I think they're missing Sicily. Sicily is their key. If Sicily doesn't play, they lose Hawthorn. So I'm going to go Carlton should win that one. If they don't win that one, there's going to be an absolute riot on Lygon Street. And then another game, a tough game. This one is in Traeger Park, which is Cairns, I think. Is that Cairns? T.O. Traeger Park. Yeah, that might be up in Cairns. Melbourne against GWS. Melbourne aren't travelling too well at the moment. GWS are playing quite well. Could be an interesting, another warning game here from Melbourne. If they drop this one, they could really start affecting their finals chances. But they're still, stat-wise, they're quite good defensively. They're really good in the midfield. They just can't kick a goal. But if you have a look at their first 4 games of the year, they were overperforming in their goal kicking. They were super accurate. But for the last 6 weeks, they've been super under-accurate. So that could always change. They're definitely getting the opportunities. So I think I'm going to go Melbourne just because their toughness in the midfield and their defence. And GWS are not at the same level. Then we've got the West Coast Eagles up against St Kilda. So if St Kilda lose that one, well then who knows. West Coast are under the pump, so there should be a bit of effort, not like last week. But St Kilda to beat the West Coast Eagles. So there we go. Like usual, I will leave Flash Crow's tips underneath on his photo. And then at the end of the video will be both of our tips and also our totals. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed the round of football that's coming up. A good 4 games there that could be really tight. Another couple of upsets maybe in the making. I hope your team wins. Hope you have a good weekend. And we will catch you in the next one. See you then.